Well then, good evening everybody. Welcome to outside the MKM Stadium. And I'm outside partially because I couldn't get back up because it's quite late and they're shutting very soon. So we're outside and we're gambling with people behaving themselves at this time of night. But I'm hoping that is the case. Norwich City have won here tonight by 2-1. It's an excellent win in terms of it's an excellent win in terms of the league table because, of course, as we documented in the pre-match video, a win would have taken Norwich within 1 point of Hull, and it has done. It's pushed them up to 8th in the table. Defeat here tonight would have meant that it was 7 points, and that I felt probably would have been insurmountable. And look, it was a performance that had deficiencies. It was a performance that had flaws. It was a performance that wasn't necessarily particularly pretty. But after the week that Norwich City have had, with so much frustration, so much anger, so much discontent, there was banners and various elements brought into the away end. All of that is completely justified for how this season has gone and how the season has unfolded. It was a win that I think everybody needed, and a win that it doesn't make the problems that Norwich City have go away in its entirety, but it does ease a little bit of the pressure, and it does change a little bit of the mood, and it does inject some positivity. And before we delve into the performance and discuss all of that, that undoubtedly has to be a positive tonight because, like I say, this is a Norwich team that have been really poor for really long stretches of this season. And if you can't enjoy wins like tonight, irrespective of those deficiencies, irrespective of those poor moments, when you come away on a Friday night, there are 1,300 Norwich City fans here, you have to enjoy these moments because they've been few and far between this year. And the away form, in particular, really has been pretty woeful. So this was a win, first and foremost, that everyone needed. And I think you could sense that from what David Wagner said, from what Shane Duffy said when I spoke to him, but just the general mood around the players and the squad. And is it a catalyst? Is it, does it delay the inevitable? I don't know. And in truth, maybe right now that doesn't necessarily matter. It's a win that just lifts everyone and lifts everything ahead of what I think is going to be a really difficult couple of weeks for Norwich City. Let's delve into it then. So I think David Wagner named what is probably at this moment in time Norwich City's strongest side. Angus, Gunn in goal, more on him later. Stacey, Duffy, McLean and Giannoulis. Sarah and Nunez, the midfield two. Sainz, Rowe, Barnes, Sargent. That front four in particular, absolutely scintillating. And it was a really low quality affair, I felt, particularly in the first half, particularly the way that Norwich City played. They were pretty willing to soak up a lot of pressure. Certainly at 30 minutes in there wasn't a single shot on target. It was a game that was lacking quality. Hull probably the better in possession. Norwich pretty wasteful with the ball at points, and that limited them from getting up the pitch. But Hull were probably unable to convert what was that possession into really clear-cut chances. And when they did, they were met with a pretty compact Norwich City block. And look, I'll be frank, this Norwich aren't the best coached team in the Championship, far from it. But what you have to give them credit for is the way that they have improved defensively. I think the first 22 games, certainly basically Cardiff, from Cardiff, start of the season to Cardiff, they were conceding 2 goals a game. Since then they've conceded 11 in 11. So they've basically half the amount of goals they're conceding, and that doesn't half give you a chance in games, even if when you are, and again we've discussed this at great length this season, not particularly well coached. The better coached team probably lost today. The better structured team probably lost today. But Norwich City were dogged. They were defensive. They limited what Hull could do in terms of converting that load of productivity or kind of territory and dominance with the ball into clear-cut chances. Yes, they needed Angus Gunn to bail them out at points, and yes, they had to defend well, but they did, and they stood up to that challenge, and they deserve, for me, immense credit for doing that. Irrespective again of how you feel they were set up, and it was for me. Look, with that players that I've listed off: Sarah, Rowe, Sargent, Nunez, Sainz. We could go through a whole list of them. They are for me better players that should be able to come here and attack games. But Hull are a really good side, and they've had a really good season. They're in a difficult spot at the moment. They've got a few injuries, but sometimes you do have to dig deep, and sometimes you do have to grind out results. And I think Norwich are in a position where they had to do that tonight, and I think a lot of those intangible qualities have to be really well credited. It wasn't, as I said, and I'll reiterate, it wasn't the best performance. It was so full of deficiencies. They weren't particularly great in possession. For long periods of time, they struggled to get out of their own half. They were clinging on, really. They had to rely on moments again, and this is something that we've heard. It's a football team at the moment that isn't particularly well coached, but is very good in terms of producing moments. And when you've got a player like John Rowe who can produce that type of moment and can get them up the pitch, and it was the first shot on target in the game, as I said, at that point, that had very little quality. For a player to carry the ball that far and then produce an outlandish finish with the outside of his boot, what a talent. And if you can keep games tight and if you can defend well and you can produce those moments, then that means you give yourself a hell of a chance to pick up points. Equally, on the flip side of that, then once you become very reliant on those moments, and Norwich are, I think you fall into this trap of inconsistency, which is where they are a little bit as well, because they're not relying at the moment on coaching structures to drag them through games. And this sums it up from Ben, really. Angus, man of the match, absolutely. But we're talking about an attacking moment in John Rowe, maybe on El Hernandez as well in the second half, and some excellent moments from Angus Gunn to reduce this deficit. Look, before the first goal, I've seen it back. I think Jimmy Yanulis is incredibly fortunate not to be sent off for an elbow in the face of Louis Coyle. Massive shiner. For me, it's he swung his elbow. It's a red card all day long, and I think he was incredibly fortunate that somehow the referee and the linesman haven't come to that conclusion. I haven't seen the Aaron Connolly Angus Gunn one back, but from what my colleagues have told me, Angus Gunn won the ball first. I think to an extent it is kind of irrelevant. It did look quite forceful, and Aaron Connolly, I think, had to come off from concussion afterwards. But there's a ball to be won, and he won it. And I think Liam Rossini is upset or frustrated with a few of the simulation stuff. Didn't have any issue with the two-fan one. I thought that was a dive. I thought it was a worthy yellow card. And, for as much as he got the Yanulis decision wrong, I felt the referee in the second half probably had a really good, strong performance. And look, again, I think Hull played in front of Norwich a lot. They've got some really good players. So Carvalho, I don't think he's fully up to sharpness yet, and I think we saw that. But number 10, who can cause you problems. Scott Twine as well, a number 10 that can cause you problems. And I felt Jack Stacey did a very good job on him, to the extent he had to change flanks to try and go and get some joy out of Dimi Yanulis, and he was eventually replaced. And look, you could argue the second half was passive and that Norwich hung on and that they sat in, but they defended well. And I think in situations where they're protecting leads, when you have Shane Duffy in your defence and you've got crosses coming into the box, there's no one better really in terms of dominating that box aerially, and that's what Norwich did well tonight. They dug in, they rode their luck. Absolutely, they rode their luck, and you always have to do that when you come to places like these, when you play the way that Norwich City play, for all of the reasons that we've spoken about. And if we're being honest, if it's not Angus Gunn in goal, Norwich City, this result probably is dramatically different. It probably is radically different, and they probably are. Completely, and we're probably walking away here talking about another defeat. Angus Gunn, for me, is one of, if not the best goalkeeper in the Championship, and that has been the case for a while. I mean, the save he made from Callum Slater tonight was absolutely stupendous, an incredible save, a match-winning save. And John Rowe's goal is going to be the one that's broadcast on social media and on news channels, and it's going to be the goal that is shown time and time and time again. But just as worthy are those saves from Angus Gunn, who's a fantastic goalkeeper. And I think everyone will have seen the drop-off when he wasn't in the side. To produce the moments he did, there was an excellent save from Billy Sharp as well. I don't think he could do much with the Tyler Morton strike, which was excellent. He is a goalkeeper that means, again, that Norwich City can live in moments. They can live on moments, because when you've got someone like that behind you who can produce unbelievable stops, then you, as I said, you've always got a chance in games. And I think there's been a lot of discussion about Rowe and about Sarah heading into the summer window. I would throw Angus Gunn in there. I think he is a Premier League goalkeeper. Premier League teams will be acutely aware of his qualities. If he can go to the Euros and have a wonderful tournament there, I would be absolutely gobsmacked if there wasn't interest in him. He's someone who's contracted till 2025 as well. So in the summer, he's entering his final year. I think there does need to be some concern slightly about him and his future, because he's incredible. And he's a really good goalkeeper at this level. And like I say, irrespective of what has been a really poor season, there's been some really bright moments and bright individuals. Angus Gunn, absolutely one of those. Kenny McLean, absolutely one of those. John Rowe, absolutely one of those. I thought Ashley Barnes had his best game for a while tonight as well. It kind of suited him. It was rough. It was tumble. The pitch was dodgy and bobbly and whatnot. And he encapsulated Norwich really, not particularly pretty, but very effective. Managed the game very well, slowed the game down pretty effectively, if we're honest. And yeah, look, again, I come back to a point that I've made after a few wins this season, which is that a sustainable way of winning games? It's not. Of course, it's not, and we all know that. And what I would say is I think they look better structured defensively, and I've made that clear. I don't think Hull penetrated them to the levels that they would want, even though we've just spoken, just done a segment talking about how fantastic Angus Gunn is. But they've gotten 3 points, and I think it's been a point made about David Wagner and this team that when they do come under cosh, and it does feel like the pressure is building, they just find themselves capable of plucking a result and of getting themselves over the line and keeping the show on the road. And it was so important to win here, or maybe not to not lose here tonight, but definitely the fact that they've been able to get a win is fantastic, and a testament, I think, to what is togetherness. And there is a togetherness in the dressing room. There has always been a togetherness in the dressing room behind this manager, by and large, irrespective of what everyone has said and what everyone thinks, and maybe the future direction of the football club. They have always been there. And in terms of sustainability, again, as I said earlier, when you're so reliant on moments to win games, John Rowe scoring a wonderful goal, Angus Gunn making a flurry of excellent saves, that isn't something that you can drop in and replicate over a 46-game season and expect to win points more often than you don't. What you do need to have is kind of strong practices, strong processes. How do you score those goals? And can you do it effectively in all aspects? And can you score? Again, are you not reliant on individuals? Can you go and score goals as a team? Can you go and produce as a team? Can you go and produce attacking patterns that are coherent, that are consistent, that are intricate, that hurt teams on a regular basis? And yes, Norwich are very reliant on individuals at the moment, but when you've got some of the individuals that they've got, that's not necessarily a surprise. So that is the point that I would make, because I actually felt in compared to other games, Norwich have probably played better and lost, but again, it's that solidity and it's the defensive solidity that they were able to build, which is really encouraging. So yeah, look, big win for everybody. As I said, the feeling around the place, the frustration, and it's a win that pushes them back up the championship table. I'm not going to stand here today and tell you that I believe in fairies and that I think they can get into the top six. Look, time will tell. I think there are better teams, and I think that Norwich's inconsistency will probably cost them. But we have to cling on to nights like tonight. When you come somewhere, when you win in the way that they've done, and they've shown that togetherness and those intangibles, because yes, they're poorly coached. Yeah, yes, I think the better coached team lost tonight. But what nobody can accuse that team of is a lack of application, of a lack of willingness, is a lack of effort. And actually, I think that's been true throughout this season. But it is a team with deficiencies. And what they are competing against, though, is a whole flock of teams that are littered with deficiencies. And it is all about whether they can weather and mask over those deficiencies better than the teams around them. If they do that, then there's a possibility that they're capable of pushing up the table. And look, equally, there's 2 points tonight after a round of fixtures tomorrow, and there's some tough games. And I think Coventry are going to Leicester, Sunderland are at Ipswich. So there are some tough games in there for the teams in and around them. It may look completely different. So look, we will see how it goes, and we will see how it transpires. I still feel like I want to see a little bit more from this Norwich side, but again, you have to understand the context of where they've been, of how they've played, of the defeats that they've had recently, of the mood. Winning here tonight was the most important thing. The performances hopefully will build if you can get confidence. I think we've seen enough to show that this is an inconsistent team. I think this is what Norwich are. I think they'll lose a couple. I think they'll win one, and they'll stumble on. I think that's the way this will go. Whether they can ever crack that code and get themselves inside the top six, who knows? They need to beat West Brom next week. They need to go to Leeds and prove that they're capable of getting a result. All of those aspects are really important. So, yeah. And I think the final word I would say, just on that defensive aspect, David Wagner and his coaching team deserve credit for the way that Norwich City have defended recently. And like I said, I remember speaking, I can't remember which video version, what might have even been Cardiff, when we were talking about the fact that essentially they can see 2 goals a game, that you need then 3 goals, 4 goals to win games of football. It's not sustainable. It's not an excellent way to win football matches, and you're going to not win as many as you do, and they've proven that in the first half of the season, right? So the fact that they've been able to tighten them up, and they've deployed the midfielders slightly different, they can a little bit more protection. They're not as open now transitionally as they were, where they would go and commit to and get sucked in by a press, get played through, and almost teams were up against their back four. There has been that structural improvement that we've seen, but there's so much more to do, and probably not enough training time to do it. So look, we will see. But let's take tonight for what it is: a really hard-fought, excellent win on the road. And we've not had enough of these this season. I'm delighted for the 1,300 Norwich fans who have made the trip on a Friday night at 8 o'clock. Those Norwich fans who will go to Bristol Rovers on Wednesday, fingers crossed, because I've looked at the weather forecast and I've got a terrible feeling that game could be in jeopardy of a frozen pitch. But let's not wish that into existence. And then obviously West Brom next weekend at Carrow Road, another massive game. And I think what everyone hopes is that we're not back at square one, and we're talking about, again, a performance that we can be proud of in terms of the way that they've gone about it, and also a result that maybe proves that they're capable to stick around. They've done the double over Hull. It's the first time I think it's the first double that they've done this season, unless someone wants to correct me on that. But they've beaten two teams inside the top 10 all season prior to tonight, and that was Cardiff and Hull. We need to see a little bit more of that if they're going to finish inside the top 6. But look, we can dissect all of that another day. Final one here. Norwich go home with the 3 points. They hit Huddersfield. There we go. Someone has pointed it out. There we go. I mean, maybe it's a double in the top 10 then. Thank you very much for watching. 2-1 win from Humberside. Let's see what a busy few weeks for Norwich City brings. Thanks for watching. Good night.